Good morning. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. How the devil are you doing this fine day? Been a turn in the weather, I'm afraid. Although it's coming back. The hot is coming back, but it is Wimbledon weekend, or Wimbledon fortnight, should I say. So probably should expect a bit of rain. How are we all doing? Good morning to Garvin over at Mostly Dickers, who's just popped into Instagram. Good morning variously to Dan Cullen, to Gary Muirhead, to Ken Hatcher, Peter McKenna. Good morning, Peter. But Peter, I feel your pain. If you're wondering what we're talking about, have a look at the WhatsApp group. Peter, quite rightly, I think he's trying to raise a few quid for his campaign over in the haulage industry. And it's not gone down well. I know the feeling. Peter, read the message. You'll get to know exactly what I'm talking about. Chris Ford is here as well. Morning, Chris. Roll on Tuesday. What's happening on Tuesday? What's happening on Tuesday, Chris? Have I missed something? Gary Muirhead says, can you please remind me again, when is it you and your good lady are away on the cruise? We are going away on the 28th of July, back, I think, the 9th of August. So obviously I'm going to be in the middle of the ocean, unable to broadcast. So you've got a good couple of weeks break from me, I'm afraid. I say I'm afraid. I'm sure some of you will welcome that. Yes, we are going to be away. We're flying to Rome, taking the train down to the coast, picking up the ship, and then we're going to Naples and various other places. Looking forward to it. I do need, I have to admit, I do need a bit of a battery recharge. Starting to get a bit in my own head. Listen, it's not a cry for help. I'm not talking about mental health or anything like that. I just do feel like I've been a bit full on with this over the past 6 months or so, basically since Christmas. Could really do. Sorry, I just got distracted there. I could do with a bit of a recharge, bit of a brain refresh. Chris Ford says it is bus wanker day on Tuesday, and not either that or retirement is not an option. No, I have no intention of doing that either. Darwin, Mostly Digger, says nothing some good pasta can't fix it. Yeah, do you know what? I'm just looking forward to being on the ship, reading a book, not thinking about this, basically not thinking at all, just trying to clear the old brain a little bit. I have to say, I had a very good evening out on Saturday. Went to see Danny Baker, who is pretty much my broadcasting idol. A lot of the phrases that I use on this show have been borrowed from Danny Baker over the years, and got to see him live. And man alive, he really is very, very good. I can barely hold a candle to the guy. Ken Hatcher says, I would cancel and do the show at sea. Do the show. The sea is rough that week. You're looking that far ahead, are you? I've moved. It's lagging on LinkedIn. Okay. In that case, Peter McKenna is now over on Facebook, as is Mark Whiting. Morning, Mark. How are you doing, my friend? Good of you to be here. Loads and loads of stuff to get through. Good morning to the Facebook family, says Peter McKenna. Yeah, loads of stuff to get through. In fact, I'm going to make a start because the first thing I'm going to show you, I told you about this last week, about my trip to Germany with the fine folks at Volvo. Today, I'm going to show you. So without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. It is Monday, the 7th of July. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony, the Walrus of Demolition, the Lord High Chancellor of live streaming. And I do still have the plaque to prove it. Thank you very much indeed, Gary. In today's jet-setting international show, an electrifying visit to an all-electric demolition site in Germany with the fine folks at Volvo. We're heading down under to check out a Zoomlion telescopic handler. We're stateside with a large Bobcat wheel loader, and we're heading back to Italy yet again in the company of attachment specialist VTN. Plus, in my morning monologue today, is aspiration. Is aspiration killing construction? It will make sense when we get there. I've already posted the question of the day, but I'm now going to remind you of it very, very quickly, and it looks like this. Yeah, today's question of the day is nice and simple, although possibly unpleasant to think about this time in the morning. And the question is this: what is the worst smell you have ever encountered? And I can think of two, the second of which might well make me gag. The first one, I was required to take some photographs in a chicken shed. Smell was horrendous, clung to my clothes and my hair. Literally, 2-3 days later, get in the shower, go to wash your hair, put your hands in your hair, and you get the waft again. Absolutely terrible, but way, way, way worse than that. One of our dogs was sick on the bottom stair of our house. Now, anybody that owns a dog will know that them being sick is not particularly unusual. No, it's never any fun cleaning it up, but it's tolerable. But not on this occasion. On this occasion, it was like someone had rerouted his internal plumbing, and instead of vomiting vomit, it was like he had crapped out of the wrong end. This is no word of a lie. The smell was that bad, I had to deal with it in installments. So do a bit, run away, gag a bit, refocus, and then go back and have another go. Absolutely terrible. So there is the question of the day. What is the worst smell you've ever encountered? Let us know in the chat. What do we got here? Dan Cullen is in agreement. Yes, chicken shit is absolutely terrible. It really is. And as I say, it lingers. Chris Ford says, once jumped in the renders van in the middle of summer. By the time I got out, half a mile later, I was green. I can believe that. Yeah, and there is something about being trapped with a bat. I mean, when I went to film and photograph in this chicken shed, I was there for work, I had a job to do, and you go in and you're surrounded by chickens and chicken crap and everything else, and it's in the air, and you can literally see it floating in the air, and you have to stick with it. I had a job I couldn't just say, oh no, I can't do this, and leave. So you have, and you feel trapped by smell. Not a good thing. Peter McKenna says, take away fat sludge when sucking out the fat traps. And I've dealt with a lot of smells over the years as a farmhand and vacuum tanker driver. Chris Schultz says, my mighty meaty leftover pizza just looked totally different. Yes, I bet it did. I have to admit, I did question that. I just thought you'd all had breakfast by now. So, yeah, keep those coming. Worst smell you've ever encountered. We'll be back after this with a look at an all-electric demolition site. Yeah, now, if you were here last week, and I know most of you that are in the chat actually were, my hat's on crooked. That's better. Yes, if you were here last week, you'll know I had a couple of days in Germany with Volvo. We went to Frankfurt, then on to Nuremberg, and then on from Nuremberg to Erlangen. Mr. Clips of Beast just said, let's get going with the breakfast show. Watch this, it's about to start, but thank you very much indeed for being here. So yes, last week I told you about the trip to Volvo, because we had some issues traveling back, which meant we couldn't bring you the film last week, but we've got the first of the films done and dusted now, and I'm about to show it to you. This is what I went to see. I'm Mark Anthony of Diggers and Dozers, and we've come to Erlangen in Germany, to the Siemens campus, which has the world's first all-electric demolition site, and it's all powered by Volvo. Tackling the main part of the demolition is an EW240 materials handler, all electric, plugged directly into the mains, and it's carrying a 3.5 ton attachment. Over in the recycling area, everything is battery electric. There's an EC230 Volvo excavator that's loading a Kleeman crusher. There's also a Volvo L120 wheel loader that's taking care of the materials handling. The demolition contractor on this project is Metzner Recycling. As part of their commitment to zero emissions, they've actually gone all electric on the haulage fleet as well. Volvo have partnered with fellow Swedish manufacturer Husqvarna, and they're providing the demolition robots for the indoor demolition portion of the project. Volvo have stressed that this is just a test case, but this still stands as the world's first all-electric demolition site. So, could this be a sign of things to come? I seem to be doing a lot of walking in that. I don't know why that was, but yeah, there is what we went to see. Now there's a longer version of that film coming in the not too distant future, where we actually get to speak to some of the people behind there. But as I say, we got back late, and we do need to catch up a little bit. Going back to question of the day, Gary Muirhead says a byproduct from the sewage works that they call cake, and it definitely smells like cake. I bet it doesn't. I bet it doesn't. Peter, explaining the smell of chicken manure. The breakdown of nitrogen in chicken manure produces ammonia, which has a sharp, pungent smell. It does. And ammonia is a bad one. It gets right up your tubes, doesn't it? Wonder why they didn't join forces with Brock. Good question. I think it was the Swedes sticking together, because obviously Husqvarna is Swedish, Volvo is Swedish. It makes sense, I guess. Sticking with Peter McKenna, he said, also, surströmming is a vile smell too. Anyone tried eating it? This is like a fermented fish thing, isn't it? I've never tried it. What concerns me with it, if anyone's ever seen this on YouTube, where they actually crack open a can and it basically bursts and squirts a foul-smelling liquid. Things aren't supposed to burst from cans. They're really not. Pardon my pronunciation here, but I'm going to try this. We've had over on Instagram, Manacci Demolizione Speciali, who I'm guessing are Italian, have just joined us over on Instagram. Good morning, buongiorno to you. Thank you very much indeed for being here. So yes, keep the bad smells coming in. We've got plenty more to get through, so we're going to crack on with a smidgen of this, and then we're heading down under with Zoomlion.
If you are enjoying this episode, please consider supporting the show. You can leave us a tip at buymeacoffee.com/demolition news.
Yeah, just to clarify, I was saying this to Peter earlier. If somebody does a thing online, and this is not me selling my services here, but if somebody does a thing online, and you like it, and you think these people are worth supporting, and they have a buy me a coffee link, buy them a few quid. You don't have to remortgage the house. Just a spare fiver that you have lying about the place, just to big them up a little bit. I think that's well worthwhile. Takashi 2057 says it's hot in Japan right now. It was hot here in the UK last week. It's going to be hot again later in the week, but it's currently fairly cool. But good morning, Takashi 2057, all the way from Japan. One of my favourite places. One of my absolute favourite places. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. What have we got here in the chat? Question of the day. The man who invented the smell for gas so we can identify it easily enough. There's an episode of Friends where that comes up in conversation. Gas is odourless. They add the smell. Yeah, if anyone remembers that episode, you'll know. Right, okay, we are talking telehandlers, and we're going down under to do so. This is Zoomlion, who, as you all know, are a Chinese manufacturer, but they're big in Australia for some reason. Here we go.
Hello everybody, this is one of our latest machines. It is the GT3507 and it's a dedicated machine for agriculture use. Attachments is the key for every telehandler and this one is no exception. The 3507 can have more than 12 different attachments at this point. Equipped with a double-acting hydraulic system pre-installed, it can have any type of attachment. Special tires, very high ones, gives them a huge advantage with the highest clearance from the ground on its category. Equipped with a very strong frame that makes a really robust machine for agriculture use. Rear view camera comes as standard to every model. The new hood design provides the operator with the best visibility 360 degrees. The new hood is designed to open widely, so the service area can be easy access without any danger of hitting your head. Here we have the new cooling pack. Big radiators, wide core radiators, that they will exchange the heat very easily in any condition. This machine is also equipped with a reversible fan. The fan, with a switch from inside the cab, can turn the blade, so automatically all the radiators can be unblocked from any derbies. And then we have the microcontrol hydraulic pump that answers to any demand on the joystick of the operator. And then we have a power shift 4-speed gearbox. 3507, another amazing machine dedicated for agriculture use from Zoomlion. Stay with us because the range is expanding, more great machines are coming soon.
Now, I do need to say a very quick morning to Alessandro and the team over at Oil Quick Italy. Good morning to you. Buongiorno. Oil Quick Italy and Alessandro, are you aware that one of your fellow Italians are in the chat at the moment? Manacci Demolizioni Speciali are in the chat at the moment. Have a word with them. And if you are the demolition company, do speak to Oil Quick Italy, because Oil Quick is the way to go in demolition. Honestly, it really is. Now, we've had a comment here. Gravity Services. Gravity Services Inc. I'm going to guess they are in America. So thank you very much indeed for joining us. Bad smells. How a 2-week-old chicken coop and on-site cold storage fire. The eggs had to be loaded out, and it was in the middle of summer. Needless to say, the smell wasn't pleasant. Yeah, I don't envy you that one bit. Really don't. Chris Rhodes says, I was slightly worried by the way he rubbed the hood and spoke about it. Smooth lines. Yeah, absolutely. Some people love their machines a little bit too much, don't they? And Dan Cullen, do need to answer this question for you. Will Zoomlion be at Plant Works? Now, as far as I'm aware, Zoomlion are present in the UK, particularly with their access equipment, but I've just checked the PlantWorks website, and as it stands at the moment, Zoomlion are not down as an exhibitor. Birgit Post over on Instagram just says, good morning, have a nice day. Thank you very much. You too, please have a nice day. And Dan Cullen, loving the colour of the Zoomlion. I do like a bit of green, I have to say. We're going white next, actually. We're going Bobcat. Back after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
Yeah, you might recall that a couple of, well, it must be 2 years ago now, I was speaking to a couple of the people over at Bobcat, and they were talking about their ambition to be the world's biggest compact equipment manufacturer. I'm sure that that still stands. But Bobcat are going a bit larger. They've got some larger excavators, and they've also got some larger wheel loaders as well, like this one.
Some machines move dirt. Others move the needle. Meet the Bobcat L235 large wheel loader. It's built to go big when the job calls for heavy, high-volume lifting. A 159 horsepower non-DPF engine delivers the muscle to take on the work without hesitation, while an automatic power shift transmission with 3 selectable modes makes operation easy and efficient. Operators can also dial in the loader's performance with 3 power modes to match the demands of the job. Power mode delivers the highest performance for quick load and carry tasks with fast travel. Economy mode keeps fuel consumption to a minimum while reducing engine sound. Normal mode provides a great balance of both for everyday work conditions. The L235 has a bucket capacity of 3 cubic yards and a straight, non-articulated rated operating capacity of 11,926 pounds to help cut the biggest tasks down to size. The Z-bar lift arm linkage on Bobcat wheel loaders deliver fast bucket movement, excellent breakout forces, and easy bucket ankle positioning in all kinds of applications. High production lifting capacities help you achieve more with every minute you have, while travel speeds up to 24.2 miles per hour get you onto the next job quickly. The L235 keeps you going strong from start to finish with a comfortable, roomy cab that features wide glass panels with fewer obstructions and a fully adjustable air suspension seat. The joystick gives you easy push-button direction changes without having to lift your hands away from the controls. An 8-inch high-resolution touch display puts more capability and control at your fingertips, from adjusting machine settings and functions to accessing the rear-view camera. With multiple quick coupler options available, changing non-hydraulic attachments from inside the cab is quick and easy. Use a wide variety of high-quality Bobcat attachments, from the general purpose or light material and aggregate buckets to the pallet fork, grapple, and beyond. Built to perform and back to last by your Bobcat dealer and a 3-year, 5,000-hour full coverage warranty, you can rest easy from one tough job to the next. This is more than a machine. It's your way to dig in, dominate, and move mountains on your terms.
Pretty smart, right? Like that, Dan Cullen has just said, tidy little loader, and I agree with him 100%. Keep those bad smells, if you know what I mean. Keep the bad smells coming in. We'll be right back after a bit of this with our final film of the day. We're going back to Italy in just a moment. Yeah, we're actually running out of content now from my trip across Italy with the EDA, the European Demolition Association. I think this might be the penultimate film. I think the last one may well be Trevi Benny. Not entirely sure. I need to check my records for that. But this time we're heading off to Italy, as I've already suggested. And this time we're doing it in the company with VTN, who I have to say took enormously good care of us, both during the day and during the evening. So here is VTN. Yeah, thank you very much indeed for your hospitality, all the folks at VTN. Let's have a look. Dan says, question of the day. Was on a landfill site where they were tipping human waste and food into the ground and using gas for energy. It was rough, but the chickens was way worse. Yeah, absolutely. Now, that's a tune and what a collection of kit. Yeah, I have to say, I'm very, very impressed by all things VTN. I mean, I like the attachments anyway, but they actually took the trouble to put on a demonstration as well. You wouldn't be able to see it from that, but literally the Komatsu factory at, I think it's a place called Este. I think it's called Este or Este, one of those, was literally just in the background there. As I say, you wouldn't be able to see it, but it was there. So yes, that's pretty much us for the main part of this morning show. I'm going to roll the outro in just a second before leaping gazelle-like over into my morning monologue. If you can't stick around for that, please stay safe, look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. I hope to see you again very, very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, I will be back immediately after just a tiny smidgen of this. Is aspiration killing construction? That feels like an absurd question. Aspiration is good, isn't it? But as you're about to hear, aspiration isn't just elevation. Sometimes it can be a distraction. We praise ambition, yet send it packing off to careers that glitter, careers that feel alive on a mobile phone or computer screen. Meanwhile, the jobs involving dirty hands and dirty boots remain unseen. And because of that, a vital industry starts to fade from view and fade from possibility. Computer, phone, TV, and movie screens are filled with images showing the allure of glamorous careers. Footballers, singers, YouTubers, online influencers. But demolition and construction? Those roles and those industries are invisible, hard to frame, lacking narrative. And when you can't see it, you can't aspire to it. And when you do occasionally see it, it's hardly aspirational, is it? Platforms like Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok are filled with memes of demolition and construction gone awry. On-site disasters, machines turning over, people being hurt, or displaying the kind of banter that generally involves someone being humiliated by his colleagues. On the rare occasions a young person does happen upon some form of demolition or construction content, it's likely to be enough to put them off for life. And therein lies the problem. There's a crisis in numbers. At this moment in Britain, more than 140,000 construction roles are open and unfilled. By 2032, we'll need nearly 1 million more workers, including an extra 244,000 apprentices. And that's not some spurious figure based upon likely future workloads. That's just to stop the skills gap One more time. That's just to stop the skills gap growing. A third of our skilled workforce are set to retire by 2036. Meanwhile, house building and infrastructure projects, 1.5 million new homes by 2029, high-speed rail links, runway extensions, are all waiting. But the employment pipeline is dry. Why wouldn't a young person seize this opportunity? Well, for one thing, that opportunity... I'll do that again. Why wouldn't a young person seize this opportunity? Well, for one thing, that opportunity comes clad in PPE and looks awfully like hard work. But there's another issue. The demolition and construction story is not told and it's not sold. Although 68% of young people view construction positively, only 31% would even consider it as a career of choice. And nearly half said it's not mentioned at all during careers talks. Careers advisors push university, office roles, office internships, clean, risk-free, tidy. Trades are described as dusty, dirty, almost exclusively male, physical, entry-level, dangerous. All the nuance, the tech, the leadership, the camaraderie, the sustainability, the autonomy, all goes unspoken. Yet the irony of irony, those same kids dreaming of sleek offices and influencer startups want exactly what construction delivers. A place to call their own, a driveway for their fancy car, a home for their family. They might even fantasize about solar panels and smart systems, net zero homes, aspirational items, and an aspirational lifestyle made possible by the very sector that many or most overlook. So, what if we reframed it? Show a kid at a career talk a clip of a site manager coordinating drones, BIM software, a big excavator operated via remote control. Show another clip of a plumber installing a heat pump, talking green tech and net zero. We could show all the facets of demolition and construction that make it a potentially rewarding career path for young people. But we don't. We let university and influencer culture have the stage while our people toil backstage unseen. There's a few facts that sting. Trade vacancies are at record highs. 55% of firms struggled to fill roles in late 2023, up from 29% just a year earlier. Women make up only 1% of bricklayers, 4% of all trades overall. Ethnic minorities only account for around 6%. We aren't diverse and we aren't visible. And that, perhaps, is the greatest irony of all. The results of our work, the new homes, the new roads, and the structures surgically removed from our skyline are all around us. Yet the people, the processes, and the practices that make all of those things possible are largely invisible. They're not on TV. They're not in movies. They're rarely on social media. And on the rare occasions they are, it's for all the wrong reasons. Incidents, accidents, corruption, failures. Demolition and construction have allowed themselves to be sidelined, to be pushed off the front pages, and to become a footnote. Forced to live in the shadows cast by other, seemingly more attractive, lucrative, and aspirational career paths. The endless demand for new houses, new office blocks, new roads, bridges, and railways means that we have a constant flow of positive stories to tell. But if we're to attract more young people into the fold, we need to be telling them far more proudly and far more loudly. Now, that's the main part over. I wrote that yesterday, okay? There's no rest for the wicked. No, never mind Sunday and Sabbath and all that. I was working on Saturday. So turned on my computer this morning, getting ready for the show and making sure that Dan Cullen was in the chat way before the time that he was due here. While I was doing that, I had a blip come from my computer, which was the Construction Inquirer headlines of the day arriving on my desk. And I've gathered them together, and they look like that. What have we got there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 6 stories there from the fine folks at the Construction Inquirer. Balfour Beatty terminates Danny Sullivan labour deals. In other words, that there has been some iffy goings on with a labour supply company. So that's a negative story. I mean, Balfour Beatty, hats off to them for nipping it in the bud, but they have been victim of some sketchy going on. Lynch appeal sees £800,000 abnormal load fine reduced to 10k. Now, again, fair play to Lynch for actually fighting their corner and everything else, but they've still been fined 10,000 quid, so they clearly were doing something not right. There's a third story there. Trio faced prosecution after a site death at Hinckley. Another negative. And then the final story, an apprentice has sawed off his thumb on a hotel refurbishment site. So there are 6 stories listed by Construction Inquirer today. 4 of them show this industry in a negative light. And that is part of what we're fighting against. Now, let's be absolutely honest. Is Joe Public? He's the school leaver, straight out of school, college. Is he looking at Construction Inquirer? Maybe. If you're really interested in pursuing a career in construction, maybe you have signed up for Construction Inquirer to get a feel for the industry. And if you have, and if you've received that email as well, 6 stories, 4 of which are negative. Yeah, 2/3. 2/3 of all the stories covered by Construction Inquirer today are negative. And that's not unusual. That's not unusual at all. Now, I'm going to go over to the chat to see what's going on over here. What is this? Hang on a minute. Now, Chris Ford says here, I'm going to need a cold shower after the van video. And then he comes back and says, bloody predictive text, VTN, not van, could get me into a lot of trouble. Anyone thinking I was walking the dog. Yeah, it was. A VTN. And they took great care of us during the day, even better care of us during the evening. Now, just on that, just a very quick aside. In addition to filming the bits during the day, I did film some of the other bits, the touristy bits as well. I am planning to put it all into one video, which I'll probably do one evening, actually. It's only going to be about a quarter of an hour or something like that. But watch this space, because I am working on that. What have we got here? Gary Muirhead says, I see DSM Massive High Reach is now on site at the old police station and court building in Blackpool. Yeah, apparently so. Somebody sent me a link for that, actually. And it is quite the beast. If anyone's anywhere near Blackpool, go and have a look. I wonder what Dan was on about. Now I see. Talk about being slow. What was that about? What was Dan saying was slow? Not entirely sure. Dan also says, just as you say, 2 guys text me asking how I can help them pass HSE tests. They've done the test 6 times and failed. I told them they need to bloody study. Yeah, they do. Chris Ford says, if you could find a clip of a plumber working, it would be appreciated. Then I could show my plumber what he needs to be doing. He disappears more than a ice on a hot day. Yeah, they are. They're quite hard to nail down, aren't they? I find that if you actually shackle them to the pipe they're supposed to be working on, that seems to focus their attention a little bit. It's frowned upon by the authorities, but sometimes, Dan says, wasn't Lynch's fault. The trailer they used was the same one that broke down last minute and didn't have time to update the movement orders. No, listen, I fully understand that. But think about how some people read. Listen, I am victim of this. I can put blood, sweat and tears and other bodily fluids into an article and know full well that people will not read much beyond the headline and the intro couple of sentences. So if you were a school leaver today and you've had a look at Construction Inquirer's breakdown of 6 stories, there's corruption, there's a bending of rules with Lynch, which, as I say, don't think they did a great deal wrong. There's a death and there's an apprentice chopping his thumb off. Now, when you've read those 6 headlines, even if you are really, really keen to pursue a career in construction or demolition, are you not taking a step back and going, yeah, maybe there's another way to go? And bearing in mind what we've had over the past few years, I mean, we've still got Didcot hanging over us. We've still got Redcar hanging over us. We've still got the CMA investigation hanging over us. All of those things. So if you're doing a search on construction or demolition, those things will be displayed to you as a young person. One of the things, I mean, Jim actually says, yeah, and you're right, bad news sells better than good news. It's just how it is. One of my concerns with this, and I have actually advised a few of the companies that have been involved in accidents, and in particular in the aftermath of Didcot. Not Didcot, rather the CMA. One of the things that I think is lacking is there is a thing called positive news placement. So if you are, for example, you have an accident on one of your sites, you can just basically let the news take its course, and it will, and ultimately you will fall off the front pages of Google and Bing and the other search platforms, or you can instigate a campaign of positive news placement to help drive that off. So my advice, if I were advising a demolition company post accident, would be to flood the internet with stories about appointments, new equipment purchased, new projects won, new charitable donations, how you're supporting the local community. In other words, just keep positive, positive, positive. And I believe that is lacking from the industry itself. Now, back in the day, this would have largely fallen upon the National Federation of Demolition Contractors. We have produced a new set of guidance notes. We've made this contribution to a charity. We've done this apprentice scheme. We've done this health and safety campaign. But they are silent. They to the point where I have to go and check every once in a while to make sure they're still there. We're not doing that. We're not going out there with the positive. And when you think about the sheer weight of the deluge of shit that gets uploaded onto TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, all these other social media platforms, of machines turning over, people having water dumped on them by their colleagues and so on. If you're a young person and you're looking at that and you're thinking, well, for one thing, dangerous, do I really want to subject myself to public humiliation just to earn the respect of my team? Or should I go and do something else for a living? Now, I know that sounds a bit lily-livered and a bit wokey. I fully accept that. But if we are going to try to attract people, we need to make the industry appear as welcoming as we possibly can. Part of the reason that we should by now have a ban in place for any kind of advertising promotion that is in any way, even remotely, demeaning to women. Let's do away finally once and for all with the girly calendars in the site canteen or in the workshop. Wherever that sort of thing exists, stamp it out. It's all part of making people feel more welcome and more wanted and not objectified. Let's have a look. You mean a good day to bury bad news? Did that not backfire on a certain political party? It's backfired on all the political parties, I think. Absolutely right. But I don't think it's a case of burying bad news. I think it's a case of balancing the bad news. As it stands at the moment, and I've said this before and I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, the best thing about the internet is it's given everyone a voice. The worst thing about the internet is it's given everyone a voice. And because everyone on site now has got one of these in their hand, something goes wrong, somebody will film it or photograph it. And it might be a machine that's fallen into a basement, a machine that's turned over, like I say, somebody being drenched with water by a bucket load of water, whatever it might be. And there's nothing to balance that. There is nobody balancing that out. And there are positive news content. I'd like to think that, things like our Volvo video today, that's positive. But we're outgunned and we're outnumbered. Steve Williamson does a fine job, with some of his tutorial stuff on things like GPS and quick couplers and tilt rotators and all that kind of thing. But for every Steve Williamson, there's 1,000 people showing the bad and the dangerous and the deadly. We're outgunned and we need to redress the balance. Young people need to be encouraged, which is not happening during the learning process at school. No, it's not. It's not. And there are two schools of thought on these things. There is the push and the pull. Okay, so yes, we could and we should. I do agree. We should be engaging with further educators, so schools, colleges, universities, to remind them and to show them just what demolition and construction is all about. But I think the biggest thing, and I think what will make that part easier, is not the push but the pull. If you can create a feeling among young people that demolition and construction is not a last resort, it's actually an aspirational and noble pursuit, you then end up with a situation where, come the careers evening, you sit down with your careers advisor and the careers advisor says, well, we advise you to go to university and get as many qualifications as you can. And you say, hang on a minute, love. Hang on just a minute. I want to work in demolition. I want to go work in construction. I want to work with my hands. I want a vocation. Tell me about that. And if you do that enough, if you create enough of a tsunami of demand, the educators, the careers advisors will have they will have no option but to start to promote vocational skills again. They used to, and I realise I've been out of school for a long time, but there were those that were academic, and we were all sort of funneled off down one side, and there were those of my mates that were not particularly academic, and they went off to do metal work and motor vehicle engineering and stuff. Car mechanics, in other words. We all need car mechanics. We all need plumbers. I don't know why we've got it into our heads as a nation and as a society that those are not aspirational jobs, particularly when you think about the money they earn, the demand for them. You know, there will never be a time where we don't need plumbers, electricians, carpenters, all of those things. There will not be a time. We're not there. We're a long way off that. Jim says it's up to our industry to promote itself, show kids what's available to them, but it won't bother to put the effort in to fix the problem by taking the information into schools. Yeah. And I guess that is what lies at the heart of this whole conversation is if they're not doing that, then what purpose are they serving? You know, it's the same as the CITB, and I know I've got my issues with the CITB, but you know they publish a report telling you how they're going to improve over the next 3 years just to get the go ahead to exist for another 3 years. They then produce reports on diversity and migrant labour and various other bits and pieces. But where is any sign of them doing the bit that actually needs doing? The school and the college and the university outreach, the online advertising, reminding people. I mean, think about the armed forces. You know, oddly enough, I went with Fred. What did we go to see? We went to see a movie recently. You know, I can't even remember what we went to see. I know what it was. It was the last Mission Impossible movie. We went to see that maybe 3-4 weeks ago. And you know, you get all those trailers beforehand, you know, coming to a theatre near you. In the 10-15 minutes that we were sat there, we had 4, and this is no exaggeration, I'm not doing this for artistic effect, we had 4 different adverts for joining the armed forces. Now, you know, there's a bit of me that thinks, given all that's going on in Ukraine and Gaza, maybe this is, you know, an ideal time for them to do a bit of recruitment. Maybe it's that. But they are actively promoting careers in the military. Now, you know, there's a lot of jobs in the military, much the same as there are in demolition and construction, that doesn't put you on the front line, doesn't put you in danger. There are other opportunities to be had there. But ultimately, if you're working in the military, there is a possibility somebody will fire a bullet in your direction, throw a bomb or a missile in your direction, much the same as it is in demolition and construction. The military, the armed forces, are out there day in, day out, multiple times per day across all platforms, promoting the opportunities available to young people within the services. We're not doing any of that. None at all. I mean, has anyone seen an advert for the CITB this year, last year, year before? Bearing in mind, I spend my entire time, my entire life is online. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Substack, I'm on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram. I've seen nothing. It's almost like we've you know, construction and demolition is this well-kept secret. For fuck's sake, don't tell anyone about it because they want to join us. We should be trumpeting these things from the rooftops. What about the idea of actually working with some of the contractors, demolition and construction, where a project is completed, you know, safely completed, delivered? I mean, I'm on my screen at the moment, there is video of a project that was done last weekend, not the weekend just gone, but the one before that, where Dem Master and SafeDem joined forces to take down 2 tower blocks up in Glasgow. Why are we not taking that and offering it to schools and colleges and say, there you go, go tell children and young people in Scotland, look what this industry just did. Wouldn't you fancy being a part of that? But we don't do that. Now, hold that thought, because Neil Edwards has just joined us over on Instagram. Morning, Neil. How are you doing, my friend? Haven't seen you for a bloody age. We are owed some lunch, my friend. Let's have a chat. There are always someone to video others' mistakes and not look at the actual problem as to why this happened. They don't say the problem or say that the person is okay. Listen, I have a particular beef with that. There were a couple of incidents last year where police officers were attacked on the streets of London, including a female police officer who was drop kicked to the floor at one point. And rather than leaping to her aid, which you'd have thought most right-minded people would do, people just stood around and filmed it. And I think you've got exactly the same. And listen, you know, I'm very selective about what I put on Instagram, but I have fallen foul of this from time to time. And I did put one up of a guy on his hands and knees, and somebody in a mini excavator basically nudges him into a puddle so that he's soaked to the skin. Now, in terms of on-site banter, you'd say, oh, you know, quite funny. And the guy was, I mean, the puddle was obviously very, very cold, and the guy's effing and jeffing and everything else. But what if that had gone wrong? What if that machine had actually caused him physical harm? You know, what does that do to his, you know, and that video has now been seen millions of times. What has that done to his personal pride? Probably not a great deal. And yet there it is. It's out there. And as I say, I reposted it. I didn't post it. I reposted it, which it makes me every bit as bad as everybody else. As long as they get more followers, more likes, this generation is more interested in this than getting their hands dirty. I think you're right. But are we doing enough to show the upside of getting your hands dirty? Fred follows on Instagram a guy, if I thought about it long and hard enough, I could tell you his name. There's a guy in the States who basically lays driveways for your cars. And he's in a little skid steer. I think it's a Bobcat skid steer loader. And he goes to work. So he puts a GoPro camera behind his head in a pickup truck, and he drives to wherever he's going. He then moves the GoPro and puts it in a machine. He drives the machine off the pickup and then goes to work and basically just films like an operator's point of view of him going about his business. Starting with a blank canvas, ending up with a finished driveway. That guy's got millions of viewers and millions of views. He is, at this point, he is probably earning as much out of Instagram and YouTube revenue as he is out of doing his actual day job. And he doesn't show accidents. He doesn't show incidents or bad practice. He just shows him going about his daily life. Where's that? And I'm not talking about people dancing in front of their machines for TikTok views and stuff like that. I'm talking about take me to work. Take me to your place of work. Show me what it is that you do. You know, inspire me. I've said it before, I'll say it again. You can't be what you can't see. There might be something, you know, Dan, somebody like you, who is, you're at the controls of a machine, Gary, Jim, Chris, Ken, all of those people. You can talk about it till you're blue in the face and talk about it with your friends. But just that one film, you know, maybe you're working on a particularly interesting machine or interesting project or a challenging project, just to show that online to a young person, it might be the trigger that makes them go, now, that's a bit of me, that is. That's what I want. I want that. But we don't. Dan says, with the millions the CITB has, why don't they do this? They seem to keep things quiet instead of advertising the industry. As I say, I don't remember the last time I saw any advertising from the CITB at all. Now, maybe they're not advertising where I would see it. You know, maybe they are. Maybe they are doing lots of advertising in recruitment circles and among schools and colleges. I don't believe that's the case, but maybe they are. Maybe I'm judging them too harshly, but I've not seen any of that. And we've said this before on this show. As it stands at the moment, the whole of our outreach to young people, the whole of our young person recruitment system is totally fragmented. You know, you've got a company here doing a bit with a school. You've got a company over here doing a bit with a college. Maybe you've got this company over here is doing an open day for kids of, I don't know, 11 or 12 years old or whatever it might be. But there's no concerted effort. There's no addition to not the curriculum, but making material and source material readily available. So when a careers evening rolls around, even if those local companies aren't actually present themselves, there is a pack of information. This isn't a pack of information; it's a magazine. But maybe there is something. Somebody says, I quite fancy demolition, or my granddad used to work in construction. That's the sort of thing I'm after. Have a look at that. Here is your route. Here is your route into the demolition industry or the construction industry. These are the courses we would recommend that you take. These are the people we suggest you speak to. These are the things that we suggest that you understand, so that by the time they've read through that, 4 or 5 pages, right, okay, that's the way I want to go. Other industries do it. If you want to become a doctor or a lawyer or a solicitor, or whatever it might be, it's clearly laid out. You will need to study this. You'll need to qualify for that. You'll need to achieve these sort of grades. Whereas demolition construction, we're just basically an industry career safety net. Those that fall through the cracks of every other line of opportunity, that's what we end up with. Now, part of that is down to tradition, but I also believe that part of that is down to the fact that we're not showing what we can do. Where is the documentary on the construction of the Shard? Where is the documentary on the construction of HS2, Hinkley Point, the Channel Tunnel, the Olympic Village? All of those things that, we can all look at. Wow, look at that. Think about the London skyline. The Shard, the Cheese Grater, the Walkie-Talkie, the Gherkin, all terrible names, but all incredible buildings, all of which would have a story. Where is that? And the chances are that material exists. Whoever built the Shard or the Gherkin or the Walkie-Talkie, I'm sure they filmed the entire process. But rather than showing that to wannabe workers, they're probably showing that to future clients to say, we did the Gherkin. Look how good we are. What a waste. What a waste of a fantastically positive story. Whether you like those buildings or not, they are a phenomenal achievement, engineering achievement. Why are we not sharing that with the people that need the inspiration? Not just the people that need to potentially line your pockets with silver, the people that require the inspiration. I'm planning on going and buying a GoPro and video my day at work. What that consists of now with Thumper as my sidekick. You see, there's a bit of me. Should you be keeping a rabbit in the cab of your machine? I think that's open to interpretation. But if you're looking for a hook for a YouTube channel, the construction rabbit is probably not a bad place to start. I'm bearing in mind there's a guy, I don't know if anybody's ever seen this. I wish I could remember the name of the animal involved. There was a guy who went to buy, he's an American, went to buy a lobster, like you do. And you obviously buy your lobsters alive because they go off very quickly. And he bought this lobster and then decided, rather than kill it, I'll keep it as a pet. And he did, and he kept it alive, and it lasted for a good few years. And he had a YouTube channel dedicated to the ongoing adventures of, he didn't call it Dave, but Dave the Lobster. Imagine that. Imagine that. So imagine the adventures of Construction Rabbit, Thumper, the Construction Rabbit. I'd watch it. I'd give it a viewing anyway. And that if that's all it takes to get a young person to go, that's actually, never mind the rabbit, that looks a really interesting job. Dan also says, Crossrail, Canary Wharf would have made good material. I worked on the Shard, also Bishopsgate and Crossrail. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have a personal issue with Crossrail because it got rid of a music venue that I was particularly fond of. But as an engineering project, unbelievable. Unbelievable. And that is going on all of the time. Why is there not, maybe I need to start it, but why is there not a library of these kind of things? So if somebody does, a young person says, really quite fancy construction, where is the YouTube channel that says, you go. That's how the Crossrail was built. This is how Docklands was built. This is how the Channel Tunnel was built. This is how the Shard, the walkie-talkie, all of these things were built. You know, roads, bridges, tall buildings, unusual buildings, underground construction, all of the things that could be shown off that might just trigger that thing, make them go, do you know what? Yeah, that's a bit of me right there. It's there and we're not using it. So there you are. So Dan, go and get yourself a GoPro, make Thumper famous. And maybe listen, if you received a call or an email or a text message in a year's time or 2 years' time that said, I watched the Construction Rabbit YouTube channel, and as a result of that, I am now working in construction. You were the inspiration. You've just had a pretty good day, haven't you? Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice to hear that you'd actually inspired someone into, your line of work? Because let's be honest about it. If you're here and you're still listening to me babbling on about this stuff, this is not because I have a particularly charming voice. It's not because I'm a particularly good-looking person. You're here because you have a passion for the industry. And it is that passion that needs to be imparted to future generations, that inspiration. When I go to work, I do this. Oh, that sounds like a bit of me. Think about even things like Jim. Let's take Jim as an example. Jim, I think he'd be the first to admit he's quite selective in who he spends time with. If you're Jim's friend, you're a proper friend. If you're not Jim's friend, you're cut off at the kneecaps. If you're a young person, male or female, and you're not particularly social, you much prefer your own company, and you'd like the idea of working largely unsupervised, so that you can be a bit creative, so that you can be alone and alone with your own thoughts. Who's telling that story? Who's telling that story about the fact that once you've got your competence card, once you've proved yourself and everything else, you are basically your own boss. You're sat in a machine and you are doing the job uninterrupted, largely left alone with your own thoughts. Now, for some people, and I'd include myself among that sounds like a bit too much time on my own, and I would probably drive myself mental. But there are some people out there that would think, that's the job for me. And not only am I not particularly academic, but there's no way I want to work in an office because it's far too people-y. There's far too many people. There's too many people talking and chatting and backbiting and backstabbing. I want no part of that. I want to be left the fuck alone in a field with a digger. Who's telling that? Who's telling the story that is a very real possibility? That's where the NFTC and CITB need to kick up their asses to do something about this. Let's not even bother waiting. Let's not even bother waiting. The CITB exists purely these days, I think, because it's the lesser of two evils. Better the devil you know. I think the industry would quite happily walk away from it if they could, but they can't because they don't know what would replace it. And the NFTC, as I say, I literally every once in a while, about once a month, I go and check their website basically to make sure that they still exist. They're not doing anything, but I go and check that they still exist. Dan says, I've seen lots of dogs in cabs, but never seen a baby rabbit and videos on construction. Yeah. And listen, the more, this is a YouTube lesson, the more you can niche down, the better. If you said, I'm going to start a construction channel, well, welcome to the club. There's 10,000 of those. If you're going to do Hertfordshire construction, okay, you've whittled it down a little bit more. If you are going to whittle it down to Hertfordshire, I don't know where you are, but Hertfordshire construction featuring Thumper the Rabbit, you've now got an entire segment to yourself. And it's not one of those that requires millions of viewers. If you got 500 views and one of them went, that's a job for me, then surely your work here is done. That's perfect. Left to my own devices, yeah. And some people would like that. Neil Edwards has just said, "Oh, I was listening to this fantastic show." Neil, thank you very much. Oh, shucks. They exist for the money, and the NFTC too. Yeah, they do. The Traveller Construction Rabbit are in action. I'm guessing that's Thumper. But yeah, I'm gonna look out for the Construction Rabbit. I mean, you might get some passing trade from the fine folks at the Ann Summers retail outlet, but hey, that's not a bad thing. Maybe you get a few freebies from them as well. You never know. Anyway, people, that's enough of all of that. I think we've done that. I'm going to be back tomorrow, 10 a.m. For more of the same. Don't forget, I've already mentioned it. Thanks to Gary for reminding me. I am going away for a couple of weeks at the end of this month, 28th of July to the 9th or 10th, I think it is, of August. So you are going to get a bit of a break while I go and recharge the batteries and think of new things to hiss and moan about. Until then, everybody, have a fantastic day. Thank you very much indeed for your company. Thank you for all your insight. And yeah, look out on YouTube. We could have a new Construction Rabbit YouTube channel coming very, very soon. There's a sentence I never thought I'd say, but that's where we are. I'll see you soon. All the best.